Las Vegas High was the school with all the stars. All the governors came out of there.
Yeah.
All of the Sig Rogage.
Yeah,
I mean, all you guys that ran this,
Yeah.
that really ran the town.
Yeah.
Graduated from Las Vegas.
You would have probably been in a relatively early class in Western because the second high school was Rancho, but the third one was Western.
Yes,
And
exactly.
you had a great athlete by Carl Wojciechowski. I'm mispronouncing. Go ahead.
Okay. Welcome to Las Vegas Hospitality Evolution. And today we have a real treat for you. A gentleman that I'm going to let him introduce himself. But I can tell you this. He is the epitome of the evolution process here in Vegas. He can tell you everything that needs to be known from the political side, from the social side, and we're going to get into all of that. I want you to welcome this gentleman. He's laughing. Our former governor, our former senator, and please let our audience know about your political side first.
I will be happy to. Maybe I should tell them that my father came here in 1926 as a senior at Las Vegas High School. There's probably 2,200 people. Years pass. My dad goes to law school in Washington, D.C., meets my mother. I'm born the following year, and after he graduated from law school, we came back here in January of 1942. I was 4 and a half. But I remember quite a bit about it. I was obviously a bit smitten, and that was the year I was going to go to kindergarten. So that was a big thing in my life. I'm going to meet Doris Hancock, who was this legendary kindergarten teacher at Las Vegas, had been there for decades, and she later had a school named after her. But fell in love with the city from the very beginning, and very proud to have been part of it.
Senator Bryan, now, I know you have. And Governor Bryan, you've had. What are some of the other things that you have done for this state, as served this state in your political career?
Well, the first public office I held, I was a deputy district attorney. I was a prosecutor. I mean, in those days, Lonnie, I think there were 5 district court judges. Today, there may be 40 or more, including family court judges, probably even more than that. And there was about 5 or 6 of us in the criminal division. So I was a prosecutor, and I always had my eye open for opportunities. And in 1965, the state legislature created a public defender office. And each county could, if it wanted to adopt a public defender system. And John Mowbray was my mentor. He was a powerful force. Just a wonderful guy. His son practices law today here in Las Vegas. And Mowbray had established a relationship with the Ford Foundation. And the Ford Foundation was offering to partially fund the creation of the office. And what it was about $200,000, which over a 3-year period of time paid for half of what the county had paid for indigent defense. So in words that we in Las Vegas understand, it was an offer the county commission could not refuse. And so I was only 28, but Mowbray had taken a liking to me. My father had been a lawyer in Las Vegas, but he'd passed away some years before, and he pushed me. He said, this is the right guy. And lo and behold, I was appointed. I was 28, public defender, and it was an exciting opportunity for me. I must say that there was an initial problem. Las Vegas was going through one of those periodic kind of dips in the community, and so there was a lot of vacant commercial space downtown. And one of the first things that I had to do was to locate an office. The Title Insurance and Trust building on 3rd Street was brand new. I knew the managing partner there and he offered a sweetheart deal that I couldn't refuse. But I went to the county commission, and they rejected it. Yes, Mowbray was just incensed. And basically, I was so naive. The property on 3rd and Main, where the D Street is today, had C.H. Baker was its prime tenant downstairs, but it had offices. and they had vacancies. And so the Mo Dalitz, Allard Rowan, Ruby Colod, they had put some pressure on the county, totally legitimate, and said, look, make this young guy choose our property. Well, that was my first indication of what political influence. I was, just out of law school. I was a pretty naive guy. But Mowbray raised holy hell, and they didn't want to tangle with him. The next month, my request was approved.
Kind of like Las Vegas style.
Yeah. So I was public defender, and then I ran for the state legislature, served for 10 years, and attorney general was 4, governor is 6, and United States senator for 12. So your viewers might say, this guy had trouble hanging on to a job, didn't he? Yeah.
No, you just kept
moved.
you just kept making our state proud, and you were the person that was there that was advocating for our state. And what I wanted to ask you, going back to when your dad arrived here, and I know you were a young baby, but growing up, what are the changes that you have noticed in your years, in all of the great illustrious positions you've been in, of our hospitality business? How have we changed? And I want you to start with downtown and the Strip.
Well, in 1942, when we arrived, the El Rancho Vegas, at the corner of today of what we would call Las Vegas Boulevard and Sahara.
Yes.
It was the first of the Strip hotel properties, and that name had not yet been coined as the Strip. But most of the action was downtown. In fact, virtually all of the action was downtown. There were some motels, but the population in Las Vegas in 1940 was about 8,500 people.
Wow.
So we are talking about a very small town. The Bar Association, a relatively few number lawyers. The year my dad took and passed the bar, only 2 people from Las Vegas passed the bar. And a new subdivision was under construction called Huntridge, and we hear a lot about it these days, the old Huntridge Theater. Mm-hmm. I was 7 when the Huntridge Theater opened, Lonnie, and we lived at 1141 Maryland Parkway, which was just 2 houses from the theater. And in those days, the admission for a child for the movie theaters was 14 cents.
Are you
14 cents.
Okay.
And the line went all the way back almost to my house. And I'm 7, and all of a sudden I hear the chatter. It's 25 cents. Now, I don't want to give your viewers any suggestion, though, that we were, poor family. But my mother had just given me 14 cents. Lonnie, I panhandled a penny at a time, 1 cent at a time. I got 11 more cents. I hated asking for money, and in my years of political office, I hated that. I just wasn't good at it. Some people like Kerry Reed, he was very good at it, but I was terrible, and I don't know whether it dates back to that 1944.
But did you get into the show?
Yeah, I did. Oh, yes, I did. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I did get in. I was persistent, if nothing else. Yeah.
Right. The Huntridge.
Yeah.
I remember the Huntridge. It was. Didn't we have a theater downtown called the Guild?
Yes, we did.
Theater.
We did, but in those days it was called the Palace. Okay. It was right across from the courthouse, and it would have been on 2nd Street, yes. Mm-hmm. So there was the Palace. The El Portel had been there since the 20s, long before my time. And then we had the Fremont Hotel. And then in the early 40s, if you went down Fremont Street to, let's just say maybe the 16th, there was the Vegas Theater. And then over on, and I never went there. My mother was reluctant to have me go there, but I think it was on 1st Street was the Western Theater. I never went there, but the Huntridge Theater was an action place, and they had every Saturday they had typically a Western. It was Hopalong Cassidy, Roy Rogers, those guys, and then there was always a serial where there was a hero that was always at the end of each segment was in bad trouble. And the hook was you wanted to go next week to find out how he escaped.
But wasn't Las Vegas sort of like a Western town?
Well, It never
At
was
that
a
time.
Western, but a Western theme. In other
A
words,
Western theme, okay.
You've hit on a point.
Okay.
We talked today about themed resorts as if that's brand new. The El Rancho Vegas was a Western style. The waitresses wore Western.
The skinny tie.
The skinny,
yeah.
the bolo tie
Yes,
and everything. And then in 1942, the Last Frontier opened up. And you're right, it was a Western-themed resort, and one of the catchy mottos was the Old West in modern splendor. And,
Okay.
and the Last Frontier had an Easter egg hunt every year, and so all the kids in town went out there for the Easter. But we didn't have much to do with the strip hotels. The one thing, Lonnie, that as a kid, it was an era that I think so many of your viewers will have difficulty. Very few people had credit cards as we use that term today. My dad had a gas card at Standard, and I remember my neighbor, his dad had a Union Oil card, and somebody at Richfield and a Texaco. But the hotels trying to encourage locals to, come when they're having an anniversary dinner for the spouse and that sort of thing. They had what they call city ledger accounts. And you would get a bill at the end of the month for whatever you incurred. But one of the things, the city ledger, your kids could swim at the pool.
Oh, boy.
Ooh. Now, we're talking about an era. I didn't know anybody in the 1940s that had a swimming pool.
Right.
There may have been some, but I didn't know any. But gosh, I swam at the El Rancho Hotel, the Last Frontier, and that was
a
fun.
big deal.
Oh, that was a big deal.
Do you remember when not the Strip, but Fremont Street was lit up like daytime at night?
Yes,
do you
I
remember
do.
that?
I do.
And do you remember the tallest hotel for many years in the 50s and 60s was the Mint?
Oh, the Mint, yes. The Mint
Hotel.
was probably built when I was in the DA's office in the 60s. Before that, we had the Fremont Hotel, and it was like 13 stories. But the Mint, yes, much bigger.
And now today, when we have evolved, and now we have the
Circa downtown. Oh,
wow, what a place!
And he's done a great job there.
Yes.
He really has, and of course the hotel. Now on the Strip, the first of the so-called high rises was the Riviera. I was there many times as a kid. In fact, one of the routines by the time I was, let me just tell you this little story, give you some else. Well, I was president of the sophomore class at Las Vegas High School, and my dad said, you ought to create a dance for the sophomore class. Said when we did that in high school, it was called the sophomore hop. I said, okay, Dad. And we held the dance at the Elks Club at 3rd and Carson in the lodge room. I called Billy Eckstein. I'm 15. Somehow I got a hold of him. He's a great entertainer. On the
Yes,
Strip.
absolutely.
And I said, Mr. Eckstein, would you be willing to come down to the and sing a couple of songs in between, the dinner show they had and the later show? Yeah, sure. Oh my God. And some of the Strip hotel acts would come to Las Vegas High School for our assemblies. Now, I'm not every week or every month, but and then I remember the year that Rosemary Clooney's big hit was "Come On to My House" in the 50s. The Lair was for high school kids. It was not owned by the school district in any way at all. And so I remember the big sign we had in front, "Come on to our house." Yeah. Welcome to our house.
In Las Vegas High School.
Las Vegas High School.
And correct me if I'm wrong. Las Vegas High School, how many governors besides yourself came out of Las Vegas High? Can you?
I believe I'm the only governor.
But I know it was a lot of political figures.
Yes. Oh, my gosh, yes. Absolutely, yes. No question about
Sig
that.
Rogich went there?
Yeah, Sig Rogich went there. Oh, no. Myron Levitt went there.
Yes.
Myron was a county commissioner, a city councilman, lieutenant governor. In fact, I appointed him as a district court judge when I was governor. Ted Marshall later became the DA. Lloyd George became a justice of the peace and later federal judge. Jim Brennan became a county commissioner and a judge. Oh, yes. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned how much it costs to go to a movie.
Uh-huh.
How much did a room cost at the fabulous Fremont Street? How much?
You know,
do
I
you
can't
remember?
truthfully honest because we never had any. You know,
Yes.
we lived there, and I wasn't involved in those discussions in those days.
Hey, all right, I understand.
Okay.
How do you remember when Benny Binion came
Yes.
to town?
Yeah, I agree.
Can you share any stories about Mr. Binion?
Well, I can tell you about Jack.
Jack
was a,
Binion.
Jack was a. Let me just say, and Jack, you know, to skip ahead, he was a hard worker. He was at the casino 24/7. Yeah. So he was really a hard worker. But anyway, it's the fourth grade. I'm in John S. Park, and a limousine roars up to, and what's that all about? This little kid with freckles. I'm a freckle-faced kid. It was Jack Binion.
Oh my goodness!
Now, looking back on it, they lived on Bonanza, and the shell of that house on Bonanza is still there.
I know. I've seen.
But they must have gotten what would be called a waiver or something. Like, this is way beyond.
Yes.
And our teacher that year was Mary Louise Carmody, whose brother was a Catholic priest. I mean, it's a small town. Miss Carmody was probably, of all the female teachers I had in Las Vegas, she was the most athletic. Reminded me a lot of Babe Dietrichs in Zaharia. She wore her hair like that, but she could run faster than any of us. She could hit the ball faster than any of us. I mean, she was really athletic. I was not. But I always remember Miss Carmody.
And the Binions, when they did something really outside the box, didn't they display $1 million in cash?
They did, and for decades, people would go downtown. I'm talking about the locals as
I have a
well.
picture.
Sure, you know where
couple pictures.
it was shaped in the form of a horseshoe. And there you go.
And $10,000 bills. Was it $10,000?
I think it may have been.
$10,000. And people were in awe.
Oh yeah, and that was quite an attraction.
And then later on, I would say something that was sort of out of the box was when Steve Wynn built and changed the Golden Nugget. Remember? That could have been a strip hotel.
Oh boy, he nice. And then when he opened, I'll tell you what I really recall too, like in his late 70s, 79, 80, when he opened the Mirage. I mean, he took it to a new level. Yeah. Steve has his critics, but there is no question he was visionary, and he took it to the next level. The overhead was $1 million a day.
Wow.
And people said he's lost his mind.
Yeah.
He set a new standard.
That was a mega resort.
Yeah, I mean, it was, and of course, exquisite, and I went on with the Bellagio and
One of the
the
things,
Encore and of course the Wynn, yeah.
and a lot of people thought that he was, losing it when he would have these beautiful, what I would call frontal marketing with the at the Bellagio it was the fountains.
Oh, the fountains.
And then at the Mirage it was the volcano.
Yep.
Now no one had to buy a ticket to see this.
Exactly.
And they would say, "You spent all of these millions," but the people would come in, and it worked.
No question.
It worked.
And you'd see, I mean, almost every time there would be people lined up on the sidewalk.
Yes.
Yeah, just to watch it. No, Steve moved it to the next level. No question about that.
And I think he's the one that on the Strip started with the themes. But going back to your point, themes were a part of downtown as well.
Yes. Well, the Vegas Vic. And
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. No. I mean, we were really not a cowboy town, but that theme was used by many of the properties.
Do you remember the El Dorado Parade?
I was in many of them. Yeah, I was a kid. Oh yeah, my dad was the exalted ruler of the Elks Lodge, and the Elks sponsored the El Dorado in those days, and so that was a big part of my life. But the parade they had the old timers, and that was a great parade. Then the children's parade, and then on Sunday was the beauty parade, and the hotel properties had beautiful floats. Some of them large enough to accommodate a swimming pool, and they had these gorgeous showgirls there, on the floats. But for us as kids, it was the Eldorado Village on Bonanza and Maine, and that was something else. Yeah.
And then we used to have
maybe pardon me. I think it's Bonanza and North Fifth, Las Vegas Boulevard North. Yeah.
And we used to have a rodeo that would kind of accompany the parade as well.
Oh, I remember that. Yes. In the late 40s, Jim Cashman Sr. was a driving force. He was a trustee, and the Elks Lodge acquired property on, I guess you would call it Las Vegas Boulevard North now, and so a new stadium was built there. It was called Cashman Field, and it's still there. And the Elks did a lot of work there. A lot of the members of the lodge were craftsmen in their own right, and so on Saturdays, my dad was an exalted ruler. There are several officers. You start as a squire and loyal knight, lecturing knight, all that, and so the men worked a lot on Saturday, volunteer. And the Emblem Club, which was the auxiliary, as it was called in those days, prepared a meal. And there were many Saturdays that, because my dad was, he dragged me along. Now, I couldn't do much, Lonnie. I mean, I'm just a kid. But I worked with the surveyors as they were doing the sight lines on the stadium. It was a concrete, still is,
Yes.
And that was a big deal. And then when it was dedicated, oh my! And the show was called Vegas and Calico, and I was in that with some of my grade school friends doing a square dance routine, and it was really the center of activity, with the exception of Christmas. Probably the next biggest occasion for a kid was Eldorado, and the Eldorado Village. They had all the rides and all that. Yeah.
And that was down in Cashman Field. One thing I remember as a kid going to see big time wrestling at Cashman Field.
Oh yeah.
And we had a ball until there was a guy named the Destroyer, and he had a move called a figure four.
Wow.
And my brother put me into this move called a figure four. And it could actually break your legs, And so my mother and my grandmother and my grandfather said, "No more wrestling for you guys," But that was the hub of a lot of entertainment,
a lot of activity,
and
boxing. By the time I'm governor, and before, boxing was big. I mean, it was real big. When you had one of the great fights, a Sugar Ray Robinson or somebody like that. You could actually see, if you trace the gaming revenues, you could see a little blip up. And yes.
So boxing was like a catalyst to bring in more people?
Yes. Well, I mean, boxing was big. Everybody could identify who the heavyweight champion was. I mean, when I was a kid, it was Joe Louis, and, and everybody knew that. Today, it's just a different sport. The mixed martial arts frankly, I think is bigger than boxing today. I haven't seen the revenue figures, but I suspect it probably is.
Now, did you have anything to do with the Gaming Control Board? Or?
Well, yeah, the Gaming Control Board, in 1959, Grant Sawyer was our governor, and he created this bifurcated system, which simply, the Gaming Control Board is full-time. It's members appointed by the governor, and it does the investigations, the audits. The Gaming Commission consists of 5, and these are people that are not full-time employees. And they're the ones that the recommendation to take so-and-so's license, to give so-and-so a license, to impose a fine for some violation. Ultimately, it's the commission. But Grant Sawyer finished that because originally gaming was treated just like a hardware store. Just get a county business license. No background check, just get it. And then gradually in the 40s it began to grow, and so the tax commission, about 1945, so the tax commission's agency kind of became the state agency that was responsible for issuing a state license. And the state began to tax gaming when they tax just like they do today. I mean, wins versus your payouts, so you don't have to itemize the rent was this, the overhead for salaries was this,
Well, the Gaming Control Board made everything, that industry, the gaming industry, legit.
They did, and I spent a lot of time, as Attorney General and Governor, weeding out some of the folks from the old days. Yes, there's no question. I mean, the Kefauver Commission came here probably in '51 or so, and focused some very unpleasant and not favorable light on the gaming industry. And so that was kind of the catalyst, I think. I was a kid. So.
He was a senator, right?
Huh?
Keith Hoffer?
Keith Hoffer was a senator, yes.
And wasn't he going to run for president?
He did run.
Part of his platform was, let's close down Vegas?
Well, I can't recall specifically, but he chaired the commission. And
so we had to get serious about.
All of a sudden, and what happened after World War II? There were illegal gaming operations in cities all over the country. It was kind of a reform movement, and by and large, those operations were closed down. And I saw some of that from afar because their families came to Las Vegas. It's legal here.
Yeah.
We don't have to have the sheriff come and close us down a couple times a year to show he really wants to clean up the town. And so many of the families that moved to Las Vegas in those days had come from cities where gaming was not legal. And
And I think that in retrospect they did bring in some of their bad habits that they had back east, like the mechanics that could deal you a busting hand every time, and blackjack.
There may have been some of that, Lonnie. I was, like I say, I was just a kid.
Yes.
I wasn't involved in that. I was more interested in girls, and I was not athletic, unlike you. I couldn't walk and chew up at the same time. Well, but I wanted to have a letter sweater.
I brought that up because I know that our gaming commission doesn't play any games when it comes to being suitable to give the public knowing that all of our games are legit.
And I think that is something to say. I mean, by and large, in the history of gaming control, we haven't been hit by a regulatory scandal.
Yes.
I mean, that's kind of remarkable. It really is. Now, things got tighter, as, all of a sudden there were people who were licensed years ago that couldn't get licensed today.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, to get licensed today, if you had an uncle that was in trouble with the law, it would be hard for you to get a license, although you were clean.
I mean, that application, they want to know everything from your shoe size to where you lived when you were 5, No, and it's very thorough, and it needs to be. And, I think by and large, governors have made good appointments to the commission. By and large, there are some that were better than others, frankly, but no, And we became, and I think still are, the regulatory standard.
We are. I think we are, because when it proliferated to the East Coast, they had to borrow some ideas from us. To regulate gaming there. So.
Excuse me, the president's calling. But
right.
Yeah, we'll ask him.
We have an important person.
No. Wait. We just, Mr. President, I have to call you back. I'm with Lonnie Wright.
Oh, he's gonna call the president back. No, that's Las Vegans talking to each other, right? When Las Vegans are talking to each other, we don't care who calls.
I could talk about Vegas all day. Yeah, it's not a perfect place, but no place is. You know what I mean? Yes. We have our share of problems. We're a big city now.
Yes.
I mean, nobody. Well, let's give a little. You got to give a little credit to some of the early leaders that had a vision that saw this city could be much more than it was.
Can you name some of those visionaries?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think some of the people that were on the county commission in those days. And the city council. I remember when they created the sewer district, and my God, it's going to cost a whole lot of money, and people think, why in the world do we need anything like that? But they provided the infrastructure, and I'll tell you, the entrepreneurs, I mean, the people that really, in other words, Vegas was not a natural. To be honest with you, Reno, with its proximity to Tahoe and all of that, as more natural attractions. Mm-hmm. So we really had to work hard, and you got to give the folks in the Chamber of Commerce, the Las Vegas News Bureau, I mean, basically it was a constant to get Vegas in a dateline. And initially there was some confusion with Las Vegas, New Mexico, believe it or not. That's not our problem today.
No, not today.
But yeah, and so, I mean, they had all kinds of, they had a floating crap game where you've seen that picture many times. That went out on the wire service where, the dealer is, in this floating crap deal, is dealing a game, and the players are in swimsuits in the pool. Yeah, this kind of stuff.
But we've always been creative and innovative in this town.
Yes.
And some of those individuals, it's been many.
Yeah.
It started with our politics.
Yeah.
Because the commissioners had to give the okay for any entrepreneur to do.
Well, they did, and Las Vegas had kind of an attitude that, at least from the time that I can, kind of a can-do. We can do that, yeah.
Yes.
Do we have to move the mountain a half a mile? Yeah, I know. We know how to do that,
Yes.
It was always very positive, and it was kind of an informal, hey, wait a minute. Obviously, the developers, the owners are going to make money, but there'll be good jobs. So there was kind of a synergy that supported that, and Vegas benefited from that. The other thing is that initially we did have some themed resorts, as I told you, but when Atlantic City opened, I mean, I can remember people that really thought the best days
of Vegas
are behind us. You know, I mean, here's a gaming mecca that's 50, 60 miles, whatever it is, from New York City and that entire East Coast, and so, in effect, give this private sector a lot of credit. We developed, fine dining, fine shopping. In other words, Vegas has so much more today. In point of fact, revenue at the hotel, there's more revenue for the strip hotels from non-gaming sources than gaming. Now, it's not to say that, I'm not saying gaming is not very important, but
well, we've gone from the nuance from an adult oriented playground, and then Circus was built, then became a family, and then we go back and forth. Now we're sports and entertainment.
Oh, wow. Yes.
What do you think about that, Senator?
Well, I mean, I recall getting a call from Harry Wald when he was the poobah at Caesars. I was governor, and he said, look, we're trying to get the National Rodeo here to Las Vegas, and he said, it's in December, and December was historically a very slow month, very slow, and Harry was no cowboy, but he said, would you be willing to go? I think went to Colorado Springs to help make the pitch, and there were the chamber folks and the Nevada Development Authority. Bill Breer was our mayor, and we made the pitch, and by a single vote, we took it from Oklahoma City. And I think part of that was that Vegas, there's a lot to do there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Even if you're not the biggest rodeo fan on the Las Vegas Strip, boy, there's some things that you can do, entertainment and that sort of thing. And that was a great move for us.
With all this reinvention of Vegas.
Reinvented, that's probably a better word.
With all the reinvention, did you ever think in your wildest imagination that coronavirus, COVID would close down our strip, close down our city?
I did not. It was unbelievable. But we survived it.
That's right.
We're coming back.
That's right.
But no, there's no question. Well, did I ever believe that when I came as a kid, Nevada had a population of 110,000 people?
That's right.
In 1955, when I graduated from high school, Las Vegas may have had 35 to 40,000. Did I ever think that Las Vegas today, I think, has close to 700,000, and in the metropolitan area, probably over 2 million. And the state now is about 3.1 million. We've got 4 members of Congress. For decades, we had 1, and for many decades, we were the least populated state,
And then we ended up having the majority leader.
Senator
from
Reid.
We are the can-do state.
Yeah.
And I think when you talk to people like yourself that are Las Vegans through and through, there's nothing that we can't do or reinvent in our city.
That attitude has been part of it, because there wasn't a whole lot of natural wonders here in Las Vegas. I love it, but
Lake Mead, well,
Lake
that's
Mead,
not a
Lake
natural.
Mead, but no, Lake Mead and
I learned how to
Charleston.
swim at Lake Mead, by the way, with the YMCA at 7 years old. We had to wear thongs because it was kind of rocky, but it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And now, you go out. Speaking of water, we're growing, and we're having this challenge with water. What is your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, first of all, I think you've got to give a bit of credit to the Las Vegas Valley Water District and the Southern Nevada Water Authority.
Absolutely.
They've seen the problem come along. They may not be perfect, but they, early on, so Las Vegas developed, you can only water so many days a week, that sort of thing. I mean, new houses today cannot have a front yard, You can do the full grass, but desert landscaping. But those kinds of things were done. And then what that does that people don't quite understand, and the problem is serious and real, but in other words, the water that we use in our home, that ultimately goes through the sewer system. It's cleaned and goes into Lake Mead. So we get, in 1922, the upper basin and the lower basin states entered into a compact. Of all of the states, Nevada got the smallest segment of 300,000 acre feet. But Lonnie, in fairness, in 1922, there probably was 75,000 people in the whole state, and most of them lived in the Reno area. But you get a return flow credit. So to the extent you put back into the lake, in effect, the reprocessed, clean the water up, you get that. So if you put 10,000, then you get 310,000 or the right to take it. And so that's why we capture a lot of that. And that's something that people, they talk about, the Strip Hotel. Well, I mean, that water is free. Now, the irrigation, that water does not. That water, that goes into the ground, but it doesn't go into the sewer system, and it's then recharged in the lake. And so there are going to have to be some further decisions made. And frankly, it's difficult because no state wants to give up what they've got. And what happened from the very beginning back in 1922, when they determined what the annual flow was, it was apparently a series of wet years. That was not the typical annual flow. So we, in effect, allocated more than came down, from the snowmelt in the Rockies. And so Vegas has got the 300,000, and frankly, nobody wants to give up. And the idea, I hear people say, well, just build a pipe from the East Coast to West Coast. I mean, they've got flooding in Mississippi and places like that every year. Well, I mean, that would cost, billions and billions of dollars. Who's going to pay for that? Well, if I were in Louisiana and Mississippi and places like that, and you're telling, the West really needs some of that water, you guys prepared to pay for a pipeline? Hey, time out. I think it would be very difficult. I'm not saying it from an engineering point of view, it may be capably done. I don't know, but that strikes me as not a very practical. Whether we need to convert more ocean water, we can do that, desalinize. Maybe that's part of the answer, but I think we've got people thinking about the right answer, Lonnie, and it's not easy.
Well, let's go back to the can do.
Yeah.
We will find a way here in Vegas to reinvent and to always end up the number one hospitality venue the world has ever known.
Well, Lonnie, I think you've really hit a theme, the attitude. So different here than in so many other places in our state and the country. We can do it.
Yes.
And the can-do attitude has served us well.
Senator, did you ever think we would have a sports team here?
No.
Why?
No. Well, I mean, I never saw us getting into that league in terms of size. I remember when I was a kid, I thought to myself, one day we could be 100,000 people.
Oh, wow.
Wow. No, but what we did have is we had the Las Vegas Wranglers. You may recall that.
Yes.
They were in the C division. Now, in those days, there was a D division, so we weren't in the bottom, and we played Mexicali and some of these other teams. And, Yep, I remember that. They came to the Cashman Field and played down there, And originally they played in the area right behind where the old post office is, the Mob Museum. That's where they played.
I want to ask you this.
Yeah.
When you see all of these changes in Vegas, as an individual
Yeah.
Las Vegan,
Yeah.
does it make you proud?
It does. It does. Like I say, we are not perfect. We have our share of problems, but yes. And those just didn't happen. There were people that took the risk. There were people who had the vision that I think Las Vegas can be more than it was, say, 1950 or whatever it was. Now, there are times, I think, a lot of us who have lived here since the memory of man runneth not to the contrary, it was nice as a smaller town. And I have to say, you do think that from time to time, where people knew each other, and there was one high school in Las Vegas High School. It was the center of my universe, and in terms of any sporting activities, the Las Vegas High School football and basketball games, that was it,
To talk about the evolution of sports, I want to tell you a personal story. My son, my youngest son, he became a full 40-yard champion.
Wow!
And he took state, and I was so proud of him.
Sure.
I was so proud of him. I said, you know something, you could take that speed and play football or baseball. And I said, your dad. I made All-State in football, basketball, and I ran track and made All-State. He said, Dad, that's what they only had 12 high schools. He put me in my place. Now, how many high schools do we have now?
Well, including the private high schools, not all of them would have, but there's probably at least 40 high schools.
Yes.
But you're right. There's so many that I think most Las Vegas say, I haven't been to all of them, and I haven't been to all of them.
Yes. The Running Rebels, we used to recruit from Southern California because of population. But now people are coming here to recruit. I think we've let a few of our great athletes get by instead of keeping them at home. And
I know that's true. But, baseball has changed so dramatically, but the number of baseball players that are playing in the majors today from Las Vegas.
Yes.
That just strikes me. There's a lot of them.
Yes.
Yeah. And then motorsports racing, you've got Brendan Gaughan, and then you've got the Bush brothers, Kyle.
You got
Busch.
Ralph Piercy's son.
Yeah. And then Kenny Gregson's son, the mayor's grandson, Noah.
We're talking about the sons of people we know.
Yes.
Ralph and I played at UNLV together.
Yeah.
And his son became a pro golfer, and he's a heck of a golfer. I remember when I would go to we would get our families together, and I remember that little kid crawling around with my son, and now he's a big time golfer.
Yeah.
Well, Senator, I really appreciate you spending some time with our audience and kind of telling them about Las Vegas. It's more than it's sensationalism here. However, there are live here that love this city, that have grown, what, 3 or 4 generations
Yes.
from this city?
And the Las Vegas of today, it just didn't happen. You know, people that were in leadership roles, entrepreneurs who saw opportunities, people who were prepared to take the risk that said, you know, I think we can take this to the next level.
Yes.
That can-do attitude, and that's probably the one thing that, and I think in that sense that Las Vegas is different than other parts of the state.
Yeah, because that can-do, you have to really reason and convince other people, but everyone was thinking alike. They loved this city and they wanted to move forward.
Yeah.
So Senator, I really appreciate you.
I enjoyed it.
It's just a thrill to have. Well, we've known each other at least 50 years.
Oh yes,
at least 50 years.
Am I that old? Yeah.
No, well, I'm a little older than you.
No,
but
you're not. I never thought.
Are you serious?
Yeah, 85. Yeah.
Man,
And I'm not in a nursing home yet. I'm resisting that.
Listen. You remembered streets in this interview that I forgot. I mean, that was 30.
But when you get to my age, you're always thinking you got to be good to your kids because they're the ones that select your nursing homes.
I'll remember that.
I've got great kids and wonderful grandkids. I'm very, very lucky. I had a wife, Bonnie, that was just terrific. Couldn't have done what I did without her. So I'm a lucky guy, and Las Vegas gets a lot of credit for giving me the opportunity to what I always wanted to do. Yeah,
Well,
my dad was in politics.
Senator,
yeah.
it has been our pleasure to have you
Yeah.
on Las Vegas
Yeah.
Hospitality Evolution.
Enjoyed it.
And if you like this segment, subscribe, and we would love you to be a part of this every month, every week that we have this. So thank you again.
Thank you so much,
Senator.
Ron, yeah.
Now, I don't know. I know you as governor. I know you as senator, but I'm going to use the latter, the senator.
Whatever,
Because you represented us on a federal level.
Well, that I did, and I was governor. It was 40 years ago that I was elected. That would probably exclude most of the people who are still here in Las Vegas.
Wow.
40 years. Is that hard to believe? 1982, yeah.
But when you're in 24/7 town,
Yeah.
40 years is like 80 years to us because we stay up late.
Still do.